Hi, and welcome to the 10-Minute Food Truck Training Podcast. My name is Bill Moore, founder of foodtrucktraining.group. Today I'm talking about KPIs. KPIs are the dreaded things managers hate hearing about in business meetings. KPI stands for Key Performance Indicators. In the food truck world, we like to be a little bit more specific than just generically saying KPI. A successful food truck measures certain aspects of the business that create two important things. One is to improve sales, the other is to improve profits. So any decision must answer two questions. Will this improve sales? Will this improve profits? If we answer yes to both, we move forward. If we answer no to either, we either dismiss the idea or tweak the process until we get two yeses. So with improving sales or improving profits in mind, the owner must review certain numbers to stay on the path to maximum profitability. I recommend weekly review no matter how many or how few days you operate and no matter how many or how few employees you have. If you're a single owner hot dog cart, still need to review. In restaurants back in the day, we called this an operations summary. We compared the budgeted numbers to the actual numbers we were turning in. Then we created an action plan to improve anything that was outside of the budget. Because remember, if we're over budget, we have changed the break-even point. And if we change the break-even point and don't achieve it, then we're not paying ourselves back the loans that we started the business with, we're not paying ourselves a salary, and we're definitely not setting money into a profit pool for our own bonuses. So we have to hit the break-even point, and the only way we can know that for sure is to double check the numbers we're turning in. So we're going to start with sales. Compare your sales from this week to last week to this week to the same week last year and look for reasons that you could be up or look for reasons that you could be down. Clearly, if you're going to be down in sales, you need to figure out why and correct it if it's possible. If your sales are up, you need to figure out how to duplicate that. But you also can't just assume that because you're busy, oh, it's because I'm awesome. There could be things that happen that you don't really know or understand that they happened that contributed to the increased sales. For example, if a hurricane hits in South Florida and then curves back out to the Atlantic Ocean, the part of Florida I live is in the Panhandle, so we don't get anything from that storm. So for us, it's business as usual. But the folks in South Florida, they will drive north because the low-lying areas are forced to evacuate, and they drive north. So the farther north that the storm goes drives those folks farther north to avoid the storm. So say the storm hits in Miami, curves up through the peninsula of Florida, and then about the time it gets to Orlando, starts to curve back out into the Atlantic Ocean. All those folks in that whole part of the peninsula have now migrated north, especially if it's an extremely strong storm. So all those businesses that are far north of Orlando to where they're not experiencing much more than a little bit of wind and rain, and then in my area we might have completely sunny days, will be super busy. It's not anything we did. We just are benefiting from something that was not within our control. But if I'm a vendor looking at that going, oh, I'm awesome, and thinking I can do that again next week, you will be disappointed. So understand where you're getting your sales bumps as well as your down sales. What is making those happen? So sales is just one thing we're going to look at. Then you got to look into your cost. You want to look at food costs. Is it within the budget? If it's not, you have to figure out how to correct that. You want to look to ensure that your actual use matches what your POS system says you sold. So if you sell hamburgers and your inventory count says you sold 1,000 hamburgers, but your POS system says, hey, you only rang up 980, that means you're missing 20 patties. You need to figure out why and correct that problem. The cost of the cost of the 20 patties just came out of your profit. Effectively, it came out of your pocket. And that makes your food cost higher, which again takes you out of the budget that we had for the break even. So you have to look at your food cost. Waste is something people don't often track, but this helps to demonstrate if your food cost is in line. Waste will be considered something that's overcooked, mismade, dropped on the floor, returned product that needed to be replaced, and it can also be things that have a yield like tomatoes. You buy 25 pounds of tomatoes, but you only end up with maybe 23 to 24 usable pounds of tomatoes when you discard the core and you take off those shoulder pieces that people can't eat. Having a food-only waste can and counting daily helps you to understand the impact of the waste on your overall food cost. And it also helps you to work to lower the amount of waste that you have when you actually assign a dollar amount to it. So say those 20 burgers I was talking about earlier actually were in the waste bucket. It still impacts your profitability because it's gone, but at least you know where the patties are and you don't have to worry about somebody having stolen from you or giving food away. Labor cost is something else you want to check to make sure that your hourly labor is in line with what you said your budget was going to be. And then you need to examine it to see if you can revise maybe your opening or your closing procedures to help make things go faster, or have fewer people working when it's busy because you're not as busy as you originally anticipated. So you got to look at your labor, your hourly labor. You want to look at your repair and maintenance to make sure that those expenses, number one, are falling within line whatever your budget was. But then if you're not having an expense, so you have nothing to repair, you're setting aside that amount of money for the months when you do have repairs. Because remember, I like people to put away about 1.5% to 2% of their total sales for repair and maintenance on the vehicle and on the trailer and on the equipment that's inside the trailer. It's much better to have a couple $100s sitting in a bank account waiting to be spent than it is to have to spend it without it sitting in a bank. Supplies is another thing. You want to compare the expense that you're actually spending to whatever you budgeted. Supplies will be soaps and paper towels and those kind of things that clean the business up, brooms and dustpans and mops and so forth. Again, comparing what you spent to what you said you were going to spend on a budget. Here's a number that we don't often talk about or track, but it needs to be tracked because it's a good indicator of how best you can handle your business. And that's called the speed of service, SOS, speed of service. It's not how busy you feel you are or how fast you think you are. Speed of service is a time measurement. And the simplest way to do it is to count the number of guests in line, and then you start your watch. And the timer gets turned off when the last bit of food is passed out. So if you are looking out the window and you see 10 guests in line, you start the timer. When that 10th guest gets handed their food, you end the timer and then take whatever the time is on the watch, divide it by 10. That's telling you your speed of service. It tells you how fast you're going. And then you can break that down and analyze where your slow points are. But you have to start with how long is it really taking you to move those guests? Because remember, when you're hustling, time seems like it's going super, super fast, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it is. You just feel like it is. So no matter where you are in your business, you need to work on getting your speed of service faster. My initial goal that I give to everybody that I talk to is to move a guest every minute. That does not mean you're filling the order and handing food out within that minute. What that means is that the order taking process only takes a minute. And what that does for a line of 60 people, if you have the line moving, one person is able to take that step forward towards your order taking station every minute, they feel like the line is moving. That still means that last person in line is waiting 60 minutes to get their order taken. But what that also means, if your average cook time, let's say, is a really long 7 minutes, a 60-person deep line should still only take about 67 to 68 minutes to get all of them served. So even though that last person waited 60 minutes to get waited on, their food should still only take your normal cook time, 7 minutes or so. So at 68 minutes, they should have the food in their hand. So you got to compare how fast you're moving the line to how fast you're getting the food out. You want to look at your guest comments and reviews that you have on Yelp and all the other different review sites. You want to track them and look at what the people are saying about you, both good and bad. Each should have a personal response. So if somebody says, "Hey, you're awesome," you should be thanking them in a sincere way. If somebody says, "Hey, your food sucks," and they give you 2 or 3 things they didn't like, you're going to address that in a positive way. You're just going to apologize and work yourself forward. You can't afford to lose any guests because somebody said something that hurt your feelings. Every opportunity to improve should be seized, whether you feel like the complaint was legitimate or not. Typically what people do is they like to hide behind how busy they are to make up for the mistakes that they make. And that's just a dumb stance to take. Admit you have a shortcoming and fix it. People will be more appreciative if you admit to the problem and fix it than they will if you say, "Well, this happened because XYZ," and they don't care what XYZ was. They care that you fix the problem. You want to discuss your marketing plans. What's working? What's not working? How can we get more people to come in and eat? Is the budget that we have set for marketing, is it being funded, number one? And then is it being spent on marketing items? Remember, I recommend setting aside 3 to 5% of your sales for marketing. So are we replacing the flags when they get torn and faded and tattered? Are we doing things to get more people in? Are we buying ads on social media? Are we printing up flyers? Are we visiting businesses? Are we giving away some samples? Those kind of things contribute to your marketing, and you got a budget for it, you need to spend it. The bottom line is to always seek improvement in your business in every metric you can measure. 1% daily improvement seems like such a little teeny tiny amount, but when you stack that up over the course of a year, that equates to a 30 times improvement. If you want to do it mathematically to prove it yourself, it's 1.01. That represents 1% and the 1% better, and then raise that to the 365th power. So it's 1.01 times itself, 365 times. Because remember, you're doing 1% better every single day. That equates to way over a 30 times improvement. The best practice is to review your numbers weekly, even if you are a one-person operation. Then do the important step. Make an action plan and work on that action plan to improve anything that's not meeting your projected budgets. Because remember, when you missed a budget, you've increased your break-even point, which means that you are not making the money you originally thought you would be making, and the first expense that gets dinged and loses out is paying yourself back, paying yourself any kind of a salary, and having any kind of profit at the end of the day. So I don't want you guys to have to suffer through that. React to your business every week. Thank you guys so much for listening. I certainly hope you are finding everything that we talk about being useful in your food truck business. If you're enjoying the podcast, please consider hitting the support button or the links in the description and offering any kind of show of support you can. Every little bit does help, and I cherish all the support you guys give me. If you love being around like-minded positive people, join our Facebook group. It is called Food Truck Training. There you will find a ton of information, a whole bunch of supportive people, and the members just in general, just awesome, helpful guys and girls. You guys have a great day. Come back tomorrow. I've got another topic in store, and I think you're going to love it.